Good morning.
It's Thursday.
It's 8 a.m.
And it's Indie
Oh, I
Talk.
love it. It's ND Talk. Talking about North Dakota, bright and early in the morning. It is bright out now. That's the nice part, I guess. But
That's the crazy
if
part.
there's one upside of the daylight savings thing, it's at least light out coming up here today.
Hey, you know what? It wasn't bad Sunday.
It wasn't bad Sunday. It was fun Sunday.
It's all right. That's the good. You get like 1 or 2 good days after daylight savings time.
Exactly. And it gets dark at 5 o'clock at night and everyone's sad.
Yeah, that's the part that is kind of hard. Well, we have some fun things to talk about today. Obviously, there was an election, I guess, I've heard.
Yeah,
that
something happened a couple days ago.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
And that got everybody
All worked
excited
up.
or sad or however people are feeling right now. So
It happened. It's done. That's the craziest part.
that's the exciting part,
I
honestly.
wasn't expecting that, honestly. I thought it would still... I was hoping
Yeah,
that it would
I
be done
see what
by
you're
now,
saying.
but I thought there was a chance it wouldn't.
I'm just happy it's done.
Yeah, 100%. It's over. It's done with.
Whatever it is.
On
We
to
can
the next
all
one.
move on.
On to
That's-
the off-year gubernatorial races next year now.
Yeah. You got any calls on that?
Well, I think Kentucky's up and Virginia. No, it's Virginia and New Jersey next year. So
Yeah, it's going to be a very boring year for North Dakota, right?
yeah, for us, yeah, 100%. Except legislators sure is going to be in session in spring. That's what we have to look forward to now.
No, yeah, we definitely have that to look forward to. But as far as elections,
Yeah, nothing's happening unless some special election gets called for something.
yeah, and then in 2026, we'll have some local stuff,
Yep,
right?
have the odd years for the state, or the odd numbers for the state legislature. Have districts 3 and 5 for
but
local.
In Minot even.
Oh yeah, then we'll have city council and the mayor.
Yeah,
Mayor
so
seat's already going to be up in 2 years. It's crazy.
Going to be interesting
Yeah,
next 2 years as that stuff comes along. But yeah, statewide will be the odd years. So
Time's going to fly by before we know it.
today we're talking election updates. Going to go through what we took away from the election, the Dunseith debacle,
Dun dun dun.
an update on that. With we got an exciting interview that's going to be coming out tomorrow. I'm looking forward to that.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Everyone, if you're not subscribed and have the notification bell on YouTube, make sure you are, because tomorrow we're going to have an interview coming out with Charles Hofer. It's going to be electric.
It will be. I think something that has been hard is piecing this entire story together.
Yeah.
And I think this interview is going to help people begin to understand the
whole story
picture. And then from there, hopefully there's other interviews that kind of begin to be the supporting documents for the things that are said in that interview.
Yeah.
But just getting that full picture out there.
Getting the whole story and laying it out for everyone to see, rather than it just being kind of bite-sized chunks and bits and pieces.
So we'll talk about that here in a minute.
But first,
election updates.
yeah. So where do you want to start? Let's start. Obviously, if you haven't heard, if we're breaking this news, I'm sorry, but Donald Trump elected president for the second time in 3 years.
You know, I know that it isn't like a big deal because I went with a very cautious answer when asked about who's going to buzz right.
You called it. Unless some miracle Arizona doesn't go that way.
According to Decision Desk HQ, Arizona has been called.
And I don't see how it doesn't. Yeah, okay.
Nevada's been called red,
yeah,
which is incredible.
Yep.
Because it hasn't been red in a long time.
Yep. I think 2004.
Yeah. So
And it's incredible. It was
the
a
only thing left to see is how the Senate races are going to play out.
Yep. Will the Nevada Senate race end up going Republican, or will Jackie Rosen keep her seat?
Yeah.
I think Pennsylvania with Bob Casey, was he going to, I don't know if that race has been called yet, if he's going to end up keeping his seat or if McCormick's going to unseat him. That's going to be a tough one. But Republicans already have a solid majority in the Senate now. So
right.
it is theirs to do with as they please. The House race is still yet to be decided. A lot of votes to be counted in California. That always takes time, and that will probably be where the House is decided at this year.
But for North Dakota,
For us here in town,
obviously
local,
governor got called very early, Senate got called very early, and what was interesting on the Senate was it was kind of crazy that Christensen didn't do as well as we thought.
Yeah, she got a third of the vote, which compared to the last couple senatorial races is, well, the last senatorial race. Before that, it was Kramer. So the last senatorial race, which was far closer than what Hoeven ran against 2 years ago. But
Yeah,
otherwise,
I mean, but
we were expecting.
but it's
We were
Hoeven,
thinking she
man.
was. Yeah, we were thinking she was going to get to 40%.
Yeah, we thought she had a chance to get to 40%, and that did not work out.
She was the
And
best.
when she ran against Hovind, there was an independent, which I don't know that it affected her that much, but it was a little bit different.
She had
of a
like
race.
24.5% then.
Yeah.
It was a different setup. Not nearly the name recognition she had this year either.
For
going
sure.
Into it.
But I mean, like I still think that she will probably run again. I don't know, so there's an official word that I missed. But man, that's hard.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah. It
'Cause-
was another strong Republican year in the state, as expected. I don't think we expected it to be different than that, but I
Right.
think the numbers were a little farther apart than anticipated.
Yeah.
The highest fun fact: the highest performing Republican candidate in the state of any race was Julie Fedorchak. She got the most votes of any candidate in the state of North Dakota.
Which is weird.
Yeah.
Why?
More people voted for her than Trump and Vance. I guess a lot of people must have voted independent or write-in that instead of voting for.
Why? Give us some insight on this, Kyler. Why?
Why did people? Okay, that's a fun take. Yeah, Julie Fedorchak comes in with 248,000 votes. I'm assuming. Well, also one fun fact with this whole thing too: she's the first female representative in the state's history.
Yeah.
That could be a deciding factor to some extent. I assume, though, the reason there's a little bit of a gap there by about 2,000 votes, probably just a lot of independent, libertarian and write-in candidates. Between that, it was about 2.5% of the total vote for that.
Yeah, but Trygve Hammer had 3% less vote than Katrina
Christensen.
Wow, I'm struggling this morning with a vote count of 13,000 less votes than Christensen.
That's true. Does it have to do with name recognition in that case, I wonder?
Well,
just the fact she's known well.
You would also
more
kind of
well,
think that potentially people may actually feel like Katrina Christensen was better candidate. They're actually voting based on name.
It's a possibility, yeah, just on the sheer candidacy of it all.
Or maybe some people are just being ornery.
Could have been too.
Not happy with Kevin Kramer and Julie Fedorchak. We don't really know yet.
I think that's true. She's a longtime public service commissioner, but little known for around the larger leagues of state politics.
Nonetheless, it's basically a 7-3 split in North Dakota.
Yeah. That's pretty close to
yes.
how it played out this year.
Yeah.
The
It's
closest
crazy.
race in the state was the superintendent of public instruction between Kirsten Basler and Jason Heitkamp. It was like 57 to 43%, just give or take a little.
That
bit
one's
of numbers.
hard because people actually have to vote.
Exactly. They had, and it's a nonpartisan
That's what I'm
thing.
saying.
Yeah, so
They-
people
they-
had to.
You have to know your candidates for that
And
one.
Looking a little deeper into it, though, Basler, she won pretty handily across the state. Heitkamp didn't take a single county, so it was pretty much a 60-40 vote statewide for Basler.
Interesting.
But at least 12 years in the position, well known, has high name recognition, so not surprising there.
Joshua, go ahead.
I was going to start bringing up the measures, but if you had another race,
Joshua Gallion for state auditor, he won handily. Thomas Beadle almost brought in every single vote. Almost, what a guy! People really like the guy. Just kidding. There's nobody running against
It
him.
was unopposed.
So that's something that somebody can fix between now and next time. John Godfried, same thing for insurance commissioner. Ran unopposed. Public service commissioner is Randy Chrisman. That will be your public.
New PSC.
Public service commissioner, and then superintendent of public instruction, as you've already stated, is Kirsten Basler. So jumping into the measures, the first one surprisingly passed.
85, almost 85% of the vote in favor.
It's not truly surprising. This was related to terminology describing public institutions. It was updating some of the what some people considered old verbiage in descriptions, and so that is updated. Measure two
failed,
making it harder to get a initiated measure on the ballot. Failed.
56.4% of the vote, almost 195,000 people against.
It was way closer than
we were kind of thinking.
probably some thought.
Yeah, it wasn't
actually
close,
it was close enough.
Yeah.
But the
real
next
close
one was the. Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, you had Measure 3, which is talking about spending and transfers with the Legacy Fund. This was the closest one. Following it, I mean, as close as any race in North Dakota on election night. It was going back and forth. It was within a couple hundred votes at one point. It does end up passing with 51.99% of the vote, just a hair under 175,000 in favor, with 161,000 against, and that is the closest race of any of the measures in the state.
This one's a weird one. It's just weird. This is making it more harder to get money out of the Legacy Fund. Feels almost like it's a bone tossed to us by the legislature, saying, hey, we're going to make it a little bit harder on ourselves. Okay, why?
Exactly. That's what I always thought is, what was the reasoning
why are we
behind
doing this?
Getting this one?
And one idea, and somebody will have much better answers than me on this, but one idea could be that the Legacy Fund has grown substantially, and so your percentage pool might be similar to what it's always been in dollar amounts compared to what it was 10 years ago, right?
Sure.
But still interesting. And then there's the two measures everybody cared
the big
about.
Ones, yes, the big talk. Measure 4 failed.
It failed
Largely, too. Shockingly. I thought it would have been a lot closer.
One news service said, deep pockets. North Dakotans vote to keep property taxes.
Hey, what news service said that? That's a great headline.
I don't know,
I love that. Whoever thought of that was thinking.
Yeah, they were definitely thinking.
Almost 100,000 more people voted against than for Measure 4. 129,753 in favor, 225,403 against. So it was over almost 2/3 of the vote voted against. I thought it would have been a lot closer than that. I thought it would have been a lot closer to what the final vote count of what Measure 5 ended up being.
Yeah.
Which also failed.
And this was the one to pass marijuana.
Yes, the recreational legalization of cannabis. And it failed. Again, for the third time. 2018, first time it came around, then came around 2 years ago, and here we are, round 3. Every time it's been going up, it went from like 60-40, 55-45, now it was 52.5 to 47.5, so it's still tracking that same way, but it's still going to be a while till this passes in North Dakota.
Absolutely. So, very interesting. And then on the local races, District 38, Republicans won. District 40, Republicans won. We all get to move on now. Legislative session's coming.
It is. The real interesting local race, I would say, was the county commissioner.
Yes.
That was by far the closest one.
This was very close.
Yep.
And so we actually did some journalism for this one. We actually reached out to some people and we asked questions.
Wow. Look at you, Jonathan.
It was crazy. We reached out to the Ward County Auditor, Marissa Heyman. And we said, what's going on here? And she said, as you can see on the state website, there's possible demand recount at this point. There doesn't look to be an automatic recount in play. Obviously, an automatic recount is 0.5 percentage point. And I think it's based off the leading vote getter.
I think that's what it
looks like in the state law
per the Secretary of State website.
Yeah, state guidelines. So that, and the demand recount is 2% off of the top, and right now I don't think it's there. But she said that there are a few ballots that they're getting figured out. So I also reached out to current Commissioner Shelley Wepler. She said that unless if there's an automatic recount, she doesn't plan on demanding a recount. Was a good race. So
with that, sounds like it will probably be locked in then.
Yeah, sounds like it should be pretty locked in with the candidates that are there. So it'll be Jim Rostad, who, all right, give the guy props, because I haven't seen one of his signs, and the dude took all the votes.
Took the majority by almost 1,000 more votes than the second place finisher.
Who was?
Ron
Merritt. Go Ron.
And then finally, third place with the tightest portion of the race.
Friend of the show.
Miranda Schuler. Congrats, Miranda. Came in third, finished about 200 votes ahead of Shelley Wepler, a little under. And then we had Ashley Gulke-Levitt and Jedediah Rader finishing it out.
And that was I didn't reach out to her, but based off the post that she made when she dropped out, Ashley Gulke has to be a little bit sad, probably. That's a lot of votes she got.
She could have She could have been competitive had it.
Well, I don't know that. I'm not saying that because she's like, oh, I should have ran. I'm just saying, I don't think she wanted to take 2,000 votes away from whatever. Now she may be fine with the results. I have no idea, but I'm just saying in the general deal of that because she went and she said Miranda Schuler seemed like a good person. Yeah. So and Miranda Schuler's on, so there's that part worked out. But
64,180 votes cast in that ballot, but of course everyone's voting 3 times or has the ability to vote 3 times.
Right, so you'd have to divide that by 3.
Yep.
But still you want to get an accurate number because some people maybe only voted twice.
Exactly. Maybe only once. Maybe they just wrote themselves in.
Very, very interesting there. It'll be interesting to see if there's much change that happens there. I don't know if change is necessary. I know on the podcast that we did with the commissioners, we talked about tech stacks, stuff like that, making it a little more easy or to access things along those lines. It'll be interesting to see if there are changes made overall. I mean, I'm sure somebody will feel differently than me, but it feels like Ward County Commission has done a good job of cutting back in their budgets in the places that need to be.
Generally so, I think.
Yeah, generally so.
Yeah, they don't. I don't think they do anything too egregious for the large point.
And you even talking with like Shelley Wepler in her interview, talking about how they even work to get their reserves down. Mm-hmm. So
they don't try to carry too heavy of a reserve account.
I believe with the interview with Ron Merritt, he was talking about it may be too far down. We might need to
bump it up a little bit even.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, there will be some change of some type, but it'll be interesting to see how drastic it is.
Without a doubt. Closest race in the whole state, statewide last night, or 2 nights ago at this point, came from Mercer County.
Yes.
Well, Mercer County, down kind of like where Stanton, North Dakota is. I don't know off the top of my head what else, but I know Stanton's there for sure. So it was their county commissioner race. It was voting for 2. They had 4 people running. First place, 2,422 votes. Second place, 1,827 votes. Third place, 1,815 votes. A 9-vote separation between the 2 candidates in Mercer County.
So that
triggers an automatic recount. So it will be that one is, I guess, the only race in the state that I don't believe is yet officially official.
Gotcha.
Everything else is pretty much done and over with at this stage.
One of the races that we said to highlight was over in District 10.
Yep.
Where we had Republicans actively
campaigning for
Democrats. And Republicans prevailed. But it's not that they prevailed, they overcame because it was actually a Democrat incumbent that they were fighting against.
Exactly. She'd been there at least 1 term. I think maybe 2. But
so
it was.
We have reached out to Jared Hendricks, and we're working on set up an interview to kind of talk about the process that he went through there, as he was the one that was being actively campaigned against. So that'll be an interesting discussion.
I look forward to hearing that. That'll be fun. Plus, fun perspective on what it's like to be a first-time legislator. And
also reached out to another first-time senator, Jose Castaneda.
Hey, District 40 local guy.
Yes, working on getting an interview set up with him. And one of the big things I think that we're going to be talking about going into legislative session is property tax.
Yep.
How is it going to be addressed? So reached out to Ben Koppelman, who was running for House in District 16, I believe it was, but he's going to run for the House Majority Lead. Mm-hmm. And he said in his interview with us that if it's not close, if Measure 4 is not close, then I don't know if the legislature will take action. So send him a text yesterday and be like, "What? How are you feeling about this?" He's like, "Yeah, I don't know if it was close enough." So
there's a chance that the House and Senate might not try to take the initiative upon themselves to enact property tax reform. Is that what I'm getting out of that?
That's what you're getting. So we might go through this again now. I don't know that I don't know. To be honest, like on a personal, I don't know if I buy into that. You got even, I believe I read an article by the North Dakota Monitor where Chad Oban or somebody close to that group of Keep It Local was commenting like, hopefully there is some change that can happen so we can stop having this discussion.
This discussion every 2-4 years at the most.
Right.
It's a common thing. I know, and obviously now Governor-elect Armstrong has mentioned many times that he wants property taxes to be reformed regardless. I know he says he's obviously came out against Measure 4, but he says he knows that's a big part of the big issue in the state, so I would really hope that he can still make that a priority going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. We did reach out to Scott Lauser, local candidate to Minot area. and we're going to work on setting up a interview with him, because he also has a plan for property tax and how it could look differently.
Fantastic. He's had a lot of experience with that this fall.
Yeah. So it's interesting, though, because this is a worry of mine. You have Koppelman, who has a plan. You have Lauser, who has a plan. And I'm sure that there's others that have a plan. And it seems like this is a problem that happens is because we don't have a more consistent legislative sessions, that different legislatures create these plans, and it takes most of the legislature to talk to them, and then by the end, maybe a consensus is not found.
Yeah, and even just if you have 5-6 different plans from different legislators all over the state, all of a sudden everybody thinks their plan's the best. I mean,
right.
You spent how much time researching, putting this together. You want it to be the one that works. So everyone's out there lobbying for their own plan, trying to see how this can play out. And lo and behold, by the time the legislative session's done, you maybe get one kind of agreed on, and then it gets voted down.
I know that Representative Lauser was aware of that, and I think he had it as a priority to get conversations rolling beforehand. In his message to me, he said that I think it was every legislator in the state knows about his plan. Okay. So I think he's trying to overcome that barrier.
He's at least trying to reach out about it.
But that'll definitely be a topic of discussion when
that time rolls
chat
around
with him.
It's coming up. It's almost here. Gonna have a new. So I guess real quick before we get on to Dunseith, do you think Burgum ends up in Trump's cabinet? Just whole different offshoot there. I just kind of thought of here.
Probably. I think that's the way that it was supposed to work out, right?
That was the initial plan, I think, or his intention. I know the only name I've seen so far floated was a Representative Thomas Massey from Kentucky. He's been floated as Secretary of Agriculture.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the only name. If you know
Massey
who Thomas,
is quite the guy.
If anyone knows who Thomas Massey is, very
something. I don't even know where he
congressman
stands.
I guess you could say he's a fan of Ron and Rand Paul loosely. I think that's probably the best I can get you on that.
Kentucky, go Kentucky. They produce some good ones.
All right.
So one thing I want to look at the national election, though, in 2012, Barack Obama won the election in a landslide. But popular vote was just rounding numbers, 66 mil to 61 mil. So Obama had 66 million votes. Romney had 61 million. 2016, Trump won the election in a landslide.
Electorally.
But he lost the popular vote. He had 63 million, so he had 2 million more than Romney. And Clinton had rounded up 66 million, so she had essentially actually had less votes than Obama got. And Trump had a few more turnout. Then
fast forward
in 2020, so we went 2012, 2016, now 2020. Biden got 81 million votes rounded, and Trump got 74 million votes rounded, which is an incredible jump on both sides.
Yeah,
because a lot of stuff that I've been seeing is like, on the Dem side, it's an incredible jump. But the Dem side,
frankly,
it was.
On both sides, it's an incredible jump.
Dem side jumped by 81, like 15 million. And the Republican side jumped by 12 million.
So both sides had just incredibly large turnout numbers for 2020.
And then in 2024, as of right now, which there's still votes coming in, so it's difficult to actually say. But as of right now, Trump has less votes than he had in 2020 by 1 million votes or so, just over 1 million.
Give or take.
So good chance he'll end up pretty close to that number.
Yeah,
it could still be a little bit below. It could be a little bit above it, but it's gonna be very, very close.
Then you have Harris,
who is down by
sitting right about 68 million votes right now.
And so she's down 13 million votes from 2020.
Yeah. And obviously that'll pick up more too. So give her maybe 70 million by it's all said and done.
Okay, but
that's still 11
down
10 plus million.
Right. That's crazy.
An incredible number.
Yeah. And some look really far into that, but I don't know if that's worth doing that. But it's very incredible.
Because on the flip side, you can say that people from 4 years ago realized how bad of a job was happening from the current administration and felt either just disenfranchised to vote or they should switch tickets on the national scale. But
yeah, I don't even know how to look at those numbers.
I think the wildest thing is how much early turnout there was for early voting compared to the lackluster day of. Not like it's
that's what I was curious about the whole time, though.
Was how there might just end up being less people the day of because of the sheer amount of early voting.
Yeah, it's like, are we really thinking that just everybody in the past? I guess I didn't early vote. Do you early vote every year?
I do, yeah.
Every year?
Typically, yep.
Yeah, and locally in the state of North Dakota, there was a North Dakota Monitor article that said we had a strong early voting, and yet the voting numbers were pretty much average for North Dakota.
Yep, percentage-wise, we're down a little bit.
It's just the fact that people are finally adjusting to how early voting works.
Yep.
It took them however long to do it,
yep.
And now...
And I think a lot of people that vote early are probably the people that do consistently vote, too. Not in all situations by any means, but I would say the majority.
Right. I almost early voted. I've never early voted.
You thought about it?
I tried, and it just did not work. I am a little bit of a procrastinator, so
we're good at that.
We're good at that. But I think that there's other people like me that are like, you know what, let's just get it done early. And then actually, I was in and out in like 20 minutes.
That's not bad. On day of, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's
sure.
That's as good as it gets. That was probably less than it took me to early vote.
That's what I'm saying. Like people were waiting in line forever. Yeah, no, there was no line.
Building? Yeah, I bet not. How many polling places day of?
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm thankful to all the people that early voted. That made it really easy on me to vote day of. Thank you, guys.
We got you. We were thinking just of you, Jonathan.
Parkwalk says they should redo Measure 2 to only include the part of voting on one thing at a time.
That would be...
Yeah.
It would be better if any one of the issues from Measure 2 were put forth instead of the conglomerate of all of them. I feel if they tried to do any single part of it, had it been the higher signatures, the voting difference, whatever it might be, I think it would have had a far better chance of passing.
Yeah.
Instead of adding everything together and making people think that this is just out to get the regular people at that point and try to prevent us from getting something on the Constitution or something amended of the Constitution amended. There we go. Words are hard.
Yeah, today they're coming hard. All right, Dunseith Debacle. There was an interview that was done a week ago from yesterday.
Yeah, the 30th.
Todd Mitchell interviewed Kevin Cramer.
Sitting senator, newly reelected Senator Kevin Cramer.
Yes, and...
Talked about a few things,
but about 12 minutes into the radio show, the subject of Dunseith came up. Was it Dunseith?
Or was it the Gateway Pundit?
No, it was Dunseith. That's right, it was. Kevin Cramer also had troubles recalling where this whole thing was going on at.
That did happen in the interview. You're right. He wasn't 100% certain of the location of all of these events, and this was after the alleged conversations between himself and Lori Hines.
If you have not listened to that interview, I don't like the idea of sending people to other people's sites to get great content, but it's worth the listen. It's worth going to
add some context
to the KFYR interview that Todd Mitchell did with Kevin Cramer to listen to it's about 5 minutes, 6 minutes long, and it starts right around 12 minutes. So Kevin Cramer, it's interesting the process that they go through. They go and they discredit the Gateway Pundit, and I don't even feel like they're factual and they're discrediting. Okay, so they say.
So what? Yeah, let's start with what they said.
They said that there was a lawsuit that the Gateway Pundit lost.
Okay.
If you research that out, though, unless there's more, and there may be pending litigation that I'm not aware of, but the lawsuit that I saw was about 2020 election, the election being rigged, and Georgia workers suing. Okay. Georgia workers made a lot of money that election.
bet.
Because I believe that's not the only lawsuit that they won.
I was going to say, I know they've at least gone after a few other people. And I'd never even heard of them going after the Gateway Pundit, so I'm sure they had pursued at least a few other areas too.
Yeah. So it's very interesting on that. That's what's being brought up, because I don't know that that's a fair thing.
Yeah, but then he furthered and said it's incredibly hard to win litigation against a media company, right?
But that litigation was probably the easiest litigation to win against a media company, just because of the massive amount of things that were being said, and I think that they all kind of got bundled together eventually, and action was taken. So, okay, whatever. Now, I don't check all his comments. I didn't do the research on this one, but I wouldn't have been surprised if, other people from North Dakota was saying that perhaps they didn't agree with how the election results turned out at a national stage either. So it's an interesting bone to pick.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Well over 4 years ago now. And
yeah. Yeah, and I'm not saying that they have credibility or not. That's not what I'm saying.
That's a whole different,
But I'm just saying, my point is, you're going to go and pick at the Gateway Pundit for that.
Yeah.
And that was something that was top of mind to a lot of North Dakotans at the time. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that there's legitimacy to those claims. I'm saying that there was a lot of people that were talking about it.
100%. You're right. That was top topic for how long?
Yeah. So, he had to have talked about it because people would have wanted to know what his take on that was. The second claim against the Gateway Pundit was that they were declaring bankruptcy, which is true. They declared bankruptcy because, and this is actually a slap in the face of credibility to the Gateway Pundit, they claimed bankruptcy so that way they could cover themselves from lawsuits, is what it would appeared.
Okay.
So that's not...
So they point for Kramer with that one.
Okay, yes. But the point was put in the wrong spot, because his deal was that they're barely making it. And if you look at their financials are doing fine.
They're doing well.
The reason why they
declared bankruptcy
was so that way they could cover themselves from getting any potential lawsuits.
Protect themselves from litigation.
Yeah, that's two different things. It's one thing if you're running short on cash and it's a failed company, and that's what the argument would be made if you're trying to just say, I think they were in bankruptcy, but the judge actually told them they couldn't.
Definitely felt like that was the implications.
Yeah. But the reason why the judge told them they couldn't is because they were trying to protect themselves from litigation. Not
it makes
because they have money.
Now.
So it was kind of a weird deal when you're trying to attack the credibility. Perhaps the credibility of the Gateway Pundit could be attacked. I'm not disagreeing with that, but it just felt like it was a weird way of going about it. Mm-hmm. And really, the whole segment is just weird.
It's an odd interview.
With
that
part.
segment. The rest of it's just a regular generic interview. But that segment is really odd.
He goes and he tries to act like he couldn't remember exactly where it was at. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure, I have no idea. That's all speculation if he could or he couldn't. But he stumbles on Dunseith. Then he says he's never talked to Charles Hofer. He's never met Charles Hofer, which I believe is true. But there have been attempts by Hofer to contact him, and Hins, if the audio recordings that we've heard are true, had a conversation with Kramer
about it. I mean, so unless she's lying in the audio tapes we heard,
which she'd have no reason to.
No.
Then there was a conversation that was at least had with Kramer about Hofer.
Yeah.
So that was kind of weird. And then the part that stuck out to me that just kind of made me aggravated was when he said that he has it says basically there's no federal nexus, which is true. So what that means is this is not a federal matter, and he's a federal senator. So
Fair.
It's outside of his purview for him to be messing in it, is basically what he's trying to imply.
On the surface, okay.
Yep. And then he goes and he says that someone needs to reach out to the Commerce Department for the guy, because that's where the work needs to be done, and essentially that Kramer has no influence there. He got 66% of the vote?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was party chair for, a good 20 years?
So I think it was an interesting interview. For me, it just creates, I don't know what to think about the whole Dunseith debacle, man.
It's weird, dude.
It's weird. But it just creates more questions for me after that interview.
It does.
It did not clear up anything on my end.
It didn't make me feel more secure.
Yeah.
on that end of it. It made more questions, and maybe we're looking too far into it.
Probably.
But it feels
We
like
need something to talk about on Thursdays.
Excuse me, he was only chair of the North Dakota Party, Republican Party, for like 2 years, and then
Get
he
it right.
was Public Service Commission for like 10 years.
That's the if you want to be.
I had to fact check myself there.
If you want to get into the House of Representatives, get to the PSC.
I guess.
Does that mean Randy Christmas next?
I mean, maybe. Also, I wanted to talk about this earlier because I was going to mention that the two people that have prior sat on Julie Fedorchak's seat, Kevin Kramer, Kelly Armstrong, have both moved into higher positions of government. Do we expect that from Julie Fedorchak in 8 years?
Yeah.
I think at least
it's the process of North Dakota right now.
It is. You just
absolutely
go to the next step, right?
Right.
So is she going to run for Senate?
Is governor higher than House?
Yeah, by far. There's only 50 governorships. There's 435 House seats.
Yeah, I feel like it's high. I feel like it's higher, but I mean, there's still like it's not a lot.
I mean, in North Dakota,
you have to judge it completely different.
Oh, it's a whole different
because by that logic, the governor is higher than Senate.
Theoretically, yeah, because you're an executive of a state. You're in theory.
Then why do people quit governor and run for Senate?
I guess to get to the national stage.
Yeah, because it's whole different stage.
Where people have quit Senate to run for governor. That's not
probably
as
not in North Dakota often.
No, I don't think in North Dakota. The only time I can think of for sure is I think the former governor of California after Jerry Brown. I can't think of his name. He was a Republican. He was a sitting senator, and then he went to. It might have been, I don't know. I don't think it was.
Can't be.
No.
I don't know who it is.
I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but he was a senator in the 80s, and he went back to California, ran for governor in the 90s.
Oh, Reagan. No, I'm kidding. That was before Reagan, or after Reagan.
Yeah, but anyways, a little quick thing we had to take there.
I don't know if that value is the same in North Dakota or not. Because like, I feel like Armstrong was happy where he's at. It's just he wanted to be back with family.
100%. That's what it felt like.
Yeah. And maybe if you're the governor of California or the governor of Florida, or
you get a little bit more national prominence in that role,
right? But in North Dakota, Montana, and I mean South Dakota, honestly pulls a decent amount of national attention.
They do
somehow. I don't know if they just do outlandish stuff so that way they can
just publishes interesting things in her book, so
that way people talk.
Maybe,
who knows? But interesting moves.
Back to Dunseith. Yes. Governor Kramer, Senator Kramer doesn't have any influence over the Department of Commerce in the state.
What do you think? Well, you already answered it.
I
think
I will agree. He probably doesn't have any direct influence in the Department of Commerce.
I think one thing that's notable is that in his, based off the transcripts, which who knows? Again, a lot of questions out there about this whole deal.
No doubt.
Based off the questions that based off the transcripts that Lori Hintz had, it sounded like Lori Hintz was thinking that he might try to pull a string in the Department of Commerce.
That was definitely
in the
loose
transcripts.
Implication. Yeah.
It wasn't loose.
It wasn't loose. It was a solid.
It was definitely in the
implication.
conversation. So if the conversation is actually true, then
certainly Lori had the conversation with Charles.
Yeah, that part seems true.
Indisputable.
Yep.
I mean, it's.
Who knows beyond that?
Past that is the questionable part at that stage. But.
So, I don't know. Interesting stuff. Basically, what we're going to be doing with that, we've teased it a lot, and that's intentional because we think it's worth you listening to. We're going to be releasing an interview tomorrow. As long as the world doesn't end before then, something catastrophic happens on our end.
Plan is for tomorrow morning, early afternoon.
Yep, that we release an interview with Hofer. That's going to kind of try to add in a lot of details, and then we are hoping to secure interviews going forward with him to really support this. I feel like this is a piece that's missing in the overall story of what's gone on in Dunseith. It feels like we've gotten a lot of details and we're having to piece it together. The press conference probably helped a little bit, but hopefully this interview really ties it together for everyone.
Because from so many different issues, there's been just chunks and bits and pieces and storylines, but this thing is a whole octopus of tentacles that we have to be able to nail down. And I think what we're going to do today will be beneficial in doing so, and I think it will add a lot of clarity to this. And then hoping that we're able to, like you said, secure the further interviews, we'll be able to go forth and go down some of those specific tentacles, take the evidence that he has, present it on screen for everyone, and actually go more in depth on some of the specific storylines.
And Kyler might even write a couple articles about it all.
Maybe. You never know. You might like my writing all of a sudden.
Never know what will happen.
Maybe I'll feel a little excited and start typing some stuff up.
Right.
See how it goes.
Yep. Very good. So that's kind of where we're at. What are we doing next week? We're doing a breakfast challenge?
Yeah, next week for sure.
All right, we're doing burritos?
Sure.
All right. Comment, let us know.
What place you want, what breakfast burrito location in town you want to see us try.
Yeah, absolutely. Park says, what do you mean until it passes? Have you guys seen what marijuana has done to Colorado? It's been a disaster. Hopefully we learn from them and never legalize recreational marijuana. Well, Park, I agree with the part where I hope we never legalize recreational marijuana, but the vote just keeps getting closer, and that's what we are seeing until it passes, because it's probably going to come back.
It's passed in Minnesota, South Dakota, Montana. South Dakota is a bit of a question, but South Dakota is largely as conservative as we are. So I feel if it passed there, it will eventually pass here. And I guess on the flip side, I'll take your argument that you've used in reverse a little bit. If we're going to keep marijuana, cannabis banned, why don't we ban alcohol and tobacco at that point?
So you're going to use my argument against me?
100%.
Well, that's fine. Let's do it.
Because I know you're okay with that. So that's why it works.
Yeah.
But I think I don't know when, but if it's 2 years or if it's 12 years, it'll happen eventually.
We'll see what happens. It's gonna sometime in the future.
Yeah, it's just pragmatism.
Interesting. Rob Fuller called me out for that. Interesting.
It's your catchphrase.
No longer.
So if you're his sidekick and I'm your sidekick, what's that make me to him?
Why are we asking this question?
I just thought, I don't know. The thoughts came to my mind.
I don't know if you're my sidekick.
I thought you called me that in one of them one time.
Yikes. I thought you were my co-host.
I like that better.
Yeah. I don't know where the sidekick thing came from.
I swear I heard you call me your sidekick in one of his, and then I heard him call you his sidekick.
He probably called you that.
Maybe that's what it was. Maybe he called me your sidekick.
Yeah, I think he did.
Then he called you his sidekick.
Love you, Rob.
It's a great time. Appreciate you, Rob.
All right. We will.
Thank you, everyone, for watching, too.
Yep. We'll be back we'll be back on Tuesday 2 p.m. with Minot Talk, and we will have a very special episode of Indie Talk releasing tomorrow, Lord willing, with Charles Hofer. Thanks for watching this episode. Have a great day.